Hi, my name's Charlyn Ware, and I'm the president-elect of the Illinois Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And I'm so glad that you've tuned in today. With me, I have David Ormsby, who is our lobbyist for the IAND, and also Julie Patterson, past president, and probably the one who is responsible for getting this new law in place. I want to say thank you to both of you for all the hard work that you've done. Julie, can you tell me and our members a little bit about what are the changes in this law?
Well, thank you very much for that very nice introduction. Although I would never take sole credit because it was a big, huge collaborative effort with a lot of people, which, maybe I, at the end would like to acknowledge their names because without them and their efforts, we definitely wouldn't be in this space that we're in. And so some of the big changes, well, first I'd like to kind of take a step back and talk about the fact that I think that the changes and the ability for us to make these changes was really based on the fact that we had a very successful victory, which was that we were also able to have dietitians included in the telehealth law. That kind of preceded the licensure law. But I feel like the inclusion of LDNs within that law sort of set the tone or the stage that we are really a part of the allied healthcare team here in Illinois. And it ensured LDNs, would be able to provide telehealth services in Illinois. And so that was like kind of our first victory. And then we used that to set the stage for the changes that we wanted to see in our current act. And so many of you may not be aware, but if you were to compare our licensure law to others across the country, ours was actually kind of deemed as one of the most restrictive in comparison to other states. And so we really wanted to try to improve that, make some changes to align with sort of those national regulations. And one of the biggest ones being the ability to write for diet orders. And this was something that came out from CMS that, dietitians at the national level could write for diet orders, but in the state of Illinois, it was more restrictive. So that was a big change that took effect. And then also one of the things that I'm really excited about or proud of is the fact that we also included other items that will help increase sort of our ability to do our jobs, right? And one of those things is ordering labs, for instance. And so we can be able to monitor the impact of our services. And then, I think another big change or notable change was the fact that really the goal or the purpose was to provide clarity around what the LDN's kind of core function is, which is to provide medical nutrition therapy. And this is really the law really distinguishes medical nutrition therapy from lower levels of nutrition counseling. And so, when we think about, what is medical nutrition therapy, it's really when we start to make changes, therapeutic diet changes that will alter someone's, or treat someone's medical condition. And so it really differentiates being, someone that might be providing, let's say, general healthful eating information with somebody that's actually making specific changes based on someone's medical or, chronic disease that they have. There's some other notable changes, which is the new law strengthens what a qualified supervisor is. So that's also a big change. There's stronger educational requirements for academic programs. There was also the elimination of licensure for certified clinical nutritionists. And then, the changing of the board for that, oversees our practice to better represent those that are licensed in Illinois. So those are some of the changes that I can think of that I think will be really exciting for members to know about.
Absolutely. I just say, wow, that you got all that through. That's, as a dietitian, that's amazing. And a lot of things stay the same, right, Julie? I mean, a lot of the things that were in our previous law are still there as well.
So one of the things that's stayed the same was what we call is the carve-out language. And so the carve-out language is that within medical nutrition therapy and ordering of therapeutic diets also includes orders for enteral and parenteral nutrition. And in this case, what has stayed the same is that orders for enteral and parenteral nutrition are only allowed by those licensed within the bill that are registered dietitian nutritionists or have their advanced certification in nutrition support. So that is something that has remained the same. And that the reason is because some people may not be aware that there are other people licensed within our bill, and we don't all have the same level of training or competencies. And so that's why there is the carve out for those that are on enteral and parenteral nutrition, that they would only those that are RDNs or CNSCs would be able to write orders for those individuals.
Wow. David, I am sure this has been quite a journey to get to where we're at today, to have this law passed, signed by the governor, signed, sealed, delivered, and it will be effective in January of 2023. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey? How hard, what you had to do, how many deals, just how that whole process worked?
Well, the first step of the process is when I took over the Nolan Group in 2019 and became the new president of the Nolan Group. And at that time, I laid out a PowerPoint strategy to the leadership at the time regarding advice to the Academy that they should take the lead in terms of drafting their own legislation, their own licensure, well before it was due to expire. And so the process began internally in 2019 for the leadership to review that strategy versus allowing the department or another stakeholder to advance their legislation. The point was to make the Academy the leaders and have the stakeholders react to them and for them to be in the driver's seat. And so the leadership did mull that over. They agreed to that idea, and in 2020 they began the long process of working through philosophically how they'd like to see the licensure reformed, as well as getting into the nitty-gritty of drafting legislative language, which is an extraordinary uphill climb. And the Academy members were able to recruit a state representative, Jonathan Carroll from the North Shore, who sponsored the bill in 2021. That began the conversations. The legislation was unable to move forward in 2021 because all the stakeholders were not on board with the exact legislative proposal that we put out there. But by 2022, again with the Academy in the lead, they organized and they mobilized the various stakeholders to hold discussions, such as the State Medical Society, coming to agreement and then coming to agreement through negotiations, somewhat arduous, with the department in particular, provision by provision by provision. And it was the licensure working group established by the Academy that really was in the driver's seat with Julie, going through both the philosophical dimensions that were debated, as well as the legislative language, as well as being involved in recruiting members who reached out originally to Representative Carroll to sponsor the bill, and then participate in the subsequent negotiations with the State Medical Society and with the licensing agency, Department of Professional Regulation. And through that process, from start to finish, when the governor signed the bill this summer, that was just approximately 3 years of work that was put in steadily, competently, with a lot of thoughtfulness and time contribution on the part of the licensure group. As you know, you're all volunteers, the leadership, the rank and file, and so it turned into a quasi full-time job for that was a volunteer job in order at the end to finally to get it over the hump. Particularly the negotiations with the department, it was no slam dunk necessarily because there were concessions on both sides. But at the end, the bill was approved unanimously in both chambers without controversy and signed by the governor without controversy. In the past, as you likely know, the licensures had a more turbulent political and legislative experience that was less productive than many would have liked, particularly 10 years ago. And so I think overall, by the Academy taking a leadership role and establishing themselves as the leader, that they set the agenda, they set the terms, and from what I can tell, achieved a great deal of what they were seeking initially in the initial ask of the initial bill.
I have to say thank you both for your perseverance. Was there ever a day when you thought, I don't think this thing's going to work?
Well, there was one day where that was likely the case, where the department actually broke off the negotiations and said, we haven't come to an agreement, and the calendar is ticking, and so we're just going to move forward and simply recertify the existing law. With that, we weren't willing to take no for an answer, came back at the department again with a compromise. A compromise that included concession on our end as well as concession on their end. And we got to agreed language, and so that within the remaining literally weeks of the General Assembly, before it adjourned, we ended up agreement because Julie and the other members of the leadership, again, they reviewed the language, they thought about it, they decided to make some compromises, again, in light of the department willing to make compromises as well. And with that, the department came back to the table, and then we moved forward, where again, the legislation passed both chambers unanimously.
Wow. And the compromise, that's just the name of the game. I mean, that's just how you work it out. How long does this law last? When will you guys have to be in place to do this again?
So it sunsets in 5 years. So the law takes effect January 1st, 2023. It has been signed off on by the governor, but it becomes effective January 1st, 2023. And then it'll sunset 5 years versus 10. That was another big change. So before it was always a 10-year licensure period, and now it's 5, which we actually see as a good thing. This was not specific to us. It was a change that was made across all licenses in Illinois, that they're moving forward with a 5-year sunset cycle. And so it allows us then an opportunity to make further enhancements, in a shorter period of time.
That's awesome. Well, again, my thanks on behalf of all of IAND and our membership for all your hard work. Anything else either of you would like to add?
Yes, thank you. I would like to add that a lot of this work wouldn't be possible without the support from our national academy, so the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And the reason I say this is because Pepin Tuma was very much responsible for helping us with the legislative language that we needed to basically forward the conversation with the department. And without the academy, we would, I think without their support, we would not be where we are today. So for all of those members out there, it's a plug for maintaining your membership, because that supports our national association, and we really needed that in order to make a difference here in Illinois. So a little plug for the members. And then also just wanted to thank those that were a big player in this. It definitely wasn't one person, but of course David is here, as you know, but Annalyn Skipper, I mentioned Pepin Tuma, Connie Loker Buzzard, Christine Cliff, Sarah Umfleet, Amy Moore, Mary Russell, Lisa Eaton-Wright, Karen Greathouse, Terry McBride, Ashley Collins, Kelly Drews, Roberta Coopermeyer, Linda Roberts, Nancy Prang. So it was a collective effort, and please, for those of you that are interested in getting involved, we're always looking for new members and leaders to help us, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, as you can see. And what do they say? Like more hands makes the light work or something. So we could use a lot more hands. Thank you.
It does take a village. David, anything else?
No, I think the only thing I would leave on would be the collective wisdom of the leadership to do this, to take a leadership strategy position by advancing their own bill that made them leaders in it, and made, I think, the association with a greater deal of respect in Springfield, because they were a force to be reckoned with, and they got the most of their ask. Unlike other organizations that go to Springfield asking for things, we took it. And so it established the reputation even more firmly in the minds of lawmakers in Springfield.
That's awesome. Thanks so much.